GorillaComm going 10.8. The evil application of modern communications. So for the vast majority of you guys out there watching this video, you probably have been learning a thing here and there, getting your feet wet on communications and stuff like that from a purpose perspective. So far, and also you ham guys too, they're somewhat intertwined, but for the most part you guys are good-natured, good people. So for the vast majority of you guys trolling the internet looking for information about communications gear, you more than likely would wind up watching a ham video, a prepper video about comms and so forth, and there's not a shortage of them. But your motives may be all good nature, for survivability, doing good for your community, and so forth. But let's take a look at the other extreme, the evil, bad extreme of modern communication that could be used against you. And I'm not talking about the government, you know, keeping track of you guys and jamming you guys and fining you guys if you operate illegally or something like that. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about the criminal element that have comm gear and are currently being implemented to further their criminal endeavors. A subscriber sent me a link to an article, Popular Science I think it was, and the link is below so you guys could read the article, because it will give you a lot more details on the story and what this video is all about. I will not divulge his name or anything because that could put him in danger, and he hasn't given me permission to say, you know, his YouTube name or nothing like that. But hey, I appreciate the link. It was a really interesting article if you're watching this. But anyway, what it was is one of the fiercest and most dangerous cartel in Mexico. One of them at least is called the Zetas. They were the strong arm or the enforcement sort of paramilitary wing of the Gulf cartel back in the day. And what these guys were comprised of was ex-special forces from the Mexican side. They actually went to the United States and was trained by United States Special Forces in the various schools here, and, you know, sent back to their old country to apply those skills there. And along with Mexican Special Forces, they had seasoned or veteran police officers or law enforcement on their side that they sort of pretty much bribed and made them desert their units and became sort of like the strong arm paramilitary wing of their organization. So they took care of the dirty work, the murders, the kidnappings, the enforcement, the collection, you name it. That was their gig. So these guys, since they were ex-military, ex-police, they brought a lot of that tactics that they learned from their sort of military career into their organization. So what are the big items for any military unit or whatever? Shoot, move, and communicate, logistics. That command structure that is so ingrained is already in place, and they know it from top to bottom. And in this video I'm going to concentrate on their communication side of the house, how they took what they learned from the military or the police force as far as communication and applied it to their criminal activity. So how seriously did these guys take communications? Well, their name of their organization is called the Zetas. In Spanish, that is the letter Z, how it's pronounced in Spanish, Zetas. And how they comprised that was their first commander from that Special Forces unit, his radio call sign was Z1 or Zebra 1. Pretty much that's how it took off, and that's what they ended up with. So the birth of their criminal sort of organization or paramilitary unit for the drug cartels has been deeply influenced or in the culture of communications. So What happened later on in their history was there's one guy in Texas. He was a businessman there, or a technician. He owned a little small shop in McAllen, Texas, selling two-way communications gear, you know, walkie-talkies and cell phones and pagers and stuff like that. Nothing big. But this one guy, this 37-year-old at the time, this one guy has pretty much became the comm unit leader for their whole organization. This guy was the IT department, the radio department, communications chief, all in one. This guy single-handedly built up their network of repeaters, radios, tactical comms, encrypted cipher communications, remote video surveillance controlled by the internet, and so forth. This guy did it all, built up their organization, and with that infrastructure in place, the Zetas, which later on broke off and built their own drug cartel, has rapidly grown in size and veracity, and just kicked ass and took names out there. And they used this radio system to sort of keep tabs on their shipments of drugs, planned raids, murders, extortion, pretty much keeping an eye on the politicians, the police force, everything. And they were connected from the southern border up to the northern border of Mexico, clear into Guatemala, because they got some of those guys, the special forces from down there, to defect and, you know, get that sort of chain of commerce going back and forth. The article will explain that hell of a lot more detailed and more concise than I will ever do. What I want to do in this video is concentrate on the comm gear, from photographs of confiscated gear, and try to explain and try to identify the components there, and it would show you exactly what they were using, more or less, and what bands, and exactly how it was put together, how I think it was put together. I'm sure there's a lot of details missing. It's hard to kind of make out what the equipment is from grainy photographs, but I'll give it a shot and see what this stuff is doing, and also compare it to a lot of the videos that I've been making in the past that has similar sort of parallel universe as far as what I've been talking about all these years, and some of the other guys out there on YouTube also talking about implementing some of that stuff. But these cartels has taken that and threw money in it and totally ran with it. So without further ado, let's see what this stuff is all about. So here's a snapshot of some confiscated gear on display here. And what you see here is pretty much a typical repeater site installation. And some of it may go remotely in a jungle somewhere, or smack dab in the middle of a metropolitan area. So on your right there, far right, you see a stack of radios there. Some of them are desktop radios, and the other components look like parts of a repeater, power amplifiers, and possibly the actual repeater themselves. And right below it is a solar power panel there. Solar panel. In the middle of the picture there, you see a Roan 45 antenna mast, and that's pretty typical here in the United States. I guess is one of the all-time sort of adaptable antenna masts out there. It's strong. If you guide it out, you could have it up to 80 feet high. It holds a fair amount of equipment, and it's not easy to spot from far away, especially if you camouflage it really well. But it's kind of like a tri sort of beam that goes upwards, and it's pretty much a standard here for hams, and even, you know, like police stations here in the States, if it's not a big station, and fire departments and so forth. Right next to it is test equipment, and that particular piece of gear is an IFR 1200. And later on there's another better picture of it. Behind that are duplexers, and from the size of them they look like VHF duplexers. So that tells you that the band that they're using for their comms out in the street is VHF. So far from these pictures, next to it is a stack of power supplies, and on top of that some more desktop radios. Towards the far left are some more duplexers, and looking at the cabling, it looks like those duplexers are configured in a duplexer sort of configuration. They're cavities, but they are interconnected in such a way that they could share a radio, transmit and receive could share one antenna. Makes it more efficient as far as not putting so much antennas on a mast and less gear and so forth. But there is a penalty, but that's something else. But that's what's going on here. That semi truck in the background supposedly was used to haul this stuff around, and also haul like a mobile command center. So they have like a mobile command center that just goes into an area to kind of listen and coordinate and do all the command and control on a certain geographical location if they don't have something in place, like in a safe house or something like that. It's all theory, but it kind of, put all this stuff together. That's what it looks like. This picture looks like it's been taken from another show and tell pony show of gear that they confiscated from the cartels, and it's almost a carbon copy of that other picture that you've seen before. Towards the far right, you see some cavities, and it looks like it's configured in a duplexer mode for repeaters. Right next to it looks like a radio rack that typically goes into a radio vault. So that's your standard 8 to 10 feet tall radio rack that you line up equipment and stack equipment. And right on the bottom there, Rome 45, and it looks like it's been painted yellow to possibly be camouflaged with their surrounding area or blend into the normal metropolitan skyline or so. Some more cavities in the duplexer mode there. Some heavy duty power supplies underneath there next to that equipment that says PC 500, and I don't know what that is. The antennas that you see there in the middle, that looks like VHF antennas to go on a tower, base station antennas. The cabling, the various cabling. On the table themselves looks like desktop radios, so people could communicate from a little command center in their closet or study or something like that in a safe house. Imagining. Towards the far left, some more cavities, and they look like they're in a duplexer configuration. Some more antennas and more cavities. This is multiple radio systems, multiple repeaters that were confiscated. Don't know if this was deployed in one area or in a string of more geographical areas. I would imagine they do have a network of this stuff, so that's what's going on here. The one thing that is different that I see here is this gear right here, and it looks like cavities for a UHF radio, and from looking at the wiring there, it looks like, or how it's interconnected, that could be a little duplexer for a UHF repeater, possibly, more than likely, I would imagine. Here's a little bit more equipment close up. So this is from the first slide there, but from a different angle, and you see some more Rome 45 antenna mast, and it's painted red. A big old spool of cable, thick cable. It looks like 1/2 inch hardline. Really efficient for short runs. And right in the middle, this piece of gear right here is a phase array antenna. It could be configured to do omnidirectional radiation, but you could also sort of concentrate the signal towards other locations more pronounced to fill a hole or a void or something like that. They're high band, not high band, but they're wide band. You could get more frequencies of a certain spectrum into it. than your standard dipole antenna. And from looking at those loops, they look like a UHF. So this is a high gain UHF phase array antenna with lots of sort of amplification of that radio waves out towards the horizon. I see 1, 2, 3, about 3 bays there. That kind of equates to 6 dBs of gain. I may be wrong. I'm just going off of the top of my head on this thing. On top of that is that black Yagi antenna. And looking at the elements, that looks like 800 megahertz elements there to amplify or beam a signal clear across, the horizon or whatever. So that is more of a bazooka of an antenna. It just concentrates that beams in one direction. Though if you look at it through the sides, from the 90-degree direction of it, it doesn't look huge or a big signal coming your way. But if you're directly in front of it, yeah, that you see that big front coming towards you, if you will. So that, I think, is used to link these repeaters together from one mountaintop to another, hopscotching down the line from southern border to the northern border. That is my take on this scene right here. Here are some confiscated solar panels, and the examples you see in front of you looks like about 110 watts at least. A lot of their sites that from the article is deep in the jungle, and they just have just the locals, I guess, bring all this stuff up to a vantage point, a commanding vantage point to install these areas. And of course, you can't run commercial power up there in some of the areas, and I would imagine there more so than ever. But you could power this equipment up with deep cell batteries, and there's the solar panel to trickle charge or charge those batteries up for operation. And as you see there, they have no shortage of solar panels to use up there, and they're becoming cheaper. But for these cartels, money isn't anything, so they pay top dollar for the equipment to have it run reliably out there in remote areas, kind of like some of the videos that I've been showing you on my channel. The little rinky-dink simplex repeater that I've built, and also a professional grade installation somewhere else. Same concept, guys. It don't matter if you're good or bad. The principles and basics are all the same. Now, this piece of equipment here I'm very familiar with. I would say I had about 5 years experience in using this almost every day in the late 90s. This is an IFR 1200, and it's an excellent piece of equipment for testing radios, from any type of radios pretty much. You could do it all. It does it all pretty much. Back in the day, this was the bee's knees. And if these guys have it, they must have communication techs there maintaining all this stuff. They have a workforce of comm techs and engineers and everything to put this stuff together, maintain it. I mean, it's like I said, it's a comm unit all to itself. That piece of gear there would only do analog radios. It will not do the newer digital stuff, but you can still test the digital radios to make sure that their basics are working or are within specs. Things that you cannot see. You cannot see power out or receiver sensitivity. You need test equipment to actually go down to measure this stuff. And this piece of equipment here is lightweight, portable, runs off a battery for a short little bit of time. It's a deployable piece of gear. It's really good. And you need people that know how to use this to maintain it and do the things that they have to do. And that's pretty scary that they have personnel actually working on this stuff here. Now I think it's a little bit of slave labor. They just kidnap communication technicians and experts out there now that their golden boy has been incarcerated and possibly used to integrate and stuff. Here's an attempt to hide in plain sight. The antenna on the left looked like it should be there. It may be used by them, who knows. But the antenna on the right, with those little spikes coming out of the sides has all been painted orange to blend in with the tower mast itself. So this could be an actual legitimate tower mast somewhere, but then they just added this one antenna there to make it blend into the infrastructure or the structure of the antenna. Pretty poor job, but from far away you cannot tell really. You have to be really up close or actually see what you're looking at, or could tell what you're looking at there. That looks like possibly, I would say maybe VHF or UHF, one of the two. I can't tell, but that's what they're using here. So what you see here in the middle, it looks like possibly some batteries they've confiscated on the table, the red squares and the black square there. And right behind the batteries looks like another array of phase array antenna out there in the VHF radio band. So that looks like possibly 6 dBs of gain, and that could cast out pretty well and receive pretty well on a particular site. And that's quite a bit of antennas there. They got what? I count like 8 right now there. So that's 8 different radios to be used. And those radios could be multiple radios depending how you use the duplexers or the cavities. You could put a number of radios on one antenna. So that could be deceptive in itself. But what I'm looking at here is the table closest to us. You see some Yagi antennas there. There's 5 of them. High gain antennas. They look like possibly 12 dBs of gain in the 800 megahertz range. And that could be used to link these repeaters together to go from one mountaintop to the other, across a ridge, a valley, or vast distances. And I would say typically 40 miles on one shot. They could probably stretch that even more if they're really good. And that dish there, that could be in the gigahertz somewhere. I'm not sure. That could be microwave. And if they have a microwave shot from hilltop to hilltop, they could cram lots of channels into that microwave, so they could run multiple equipment from one side of the state to the other. Not only radio gear, but they could possibly cram in IP or internet access or video images in that range. The sky's the limit just about. We're talking about city, country, federal infrastructure type of equipment here. The big boys that I'm talking to now. With vast networks of interconnecting all this stuff and having bandwidth to be beamed back and forth. And this is only used by the cartels right here. On the table there is end user items, the foot soldier equipment that is issued to their henchmen or whoever to go out into the field and do what they have to do. For the most part is used for lookouts. I mean, they would just pay a cab driver, a street vendor, the neighborhood kids to just have one of these along with a cell phone or whatever, and report on what's going on in the street. And you don't see cheap gear here. You don't see no Chinese-made Baofengs or Wuxans or anything like that. What you see there in front of you is Motorola, looks like XTL or XTS 2500s. I can see the equipment on the right there, the base station there. It's a mobile XTL 2500, and that is top-notch gear right there. It could be encrypted. It could run in a digital mode where it's kind of harder to eavesdrop on with a regular antenna. The sign in the back there says that it has 51 handheld radios with antenna, 1 base station mobile conversion station there, 57 chargers, 59 batteries. This type of equipment here, the quantity of equipment that you see in front of you usually is for like a small size to mid-size city as far as their police force or their fire departments. I would say a small city or one sort of police station, major police station in the area, doing a precinct or their location there. And like I said, top-notch quality equipment there. Motorola's. So this is a wake-up call to what might potentially be happening during a shit hit the fan WROL situation. Down in Mexico, in the southern border there, they're in somewhat of a quasi shit hit the fan WROL scenario where these cartels are pretty much taking over the whole country, just about. And they have a communications infrastructure there that rivals some U.S. cities out there. And I can say that with confidence. The technology that they're using is fast superior, or implemented in such a way that is far more advantageous to their tactics than the police force, some police force here in the United States. I can say that with confidence, and that is pretty scary. It will not take them that much to kind of expand that network over to the United States, though we have the ability to kind of triangulate, locate, and take them out, if you will. And we fiercely guard our frequencies here in the United States. I mean, if there's any interference, we got a team out there to kind of look out for this stuff and squash it, or find it first and find out where is it coming from and who's making it. But this is what's going on. This is reality that's happening right now, and it's pretty scary. All right, Gorilla Comm going 10-10.